this thing is to be, and quite naturally some doesn't think it should be.
You know, moving forward, we've got a system that we can model across the country, here in the state of Minnesota and in other school districts, about how we can address this issue. It's a top priority for our union to provide protections for educators of color. My unit as well, as I mentioned, we saw historic gains, making sure that we have seniority rights and placement rights. We said the devil's in the details. What we needed to do is get in and dig through those numbers and make them work.
In the last 4 months, we've had a lot of controversial worldwide publicity, most of which has been brought about by a very small minority of the local citizens.
In terms of seniority, those same black teachers are at the bottom of the pipeline. So it'll basically maybe take them at least 10 years to catch up. So if the devils are in the details, what specific protections do you have right now that won't take 10 years for those same teachers? Not people of color, but the black teachers of the failing black students, which is the banner flag of this failing public school district.
God said He created all men equal. None of us stands above the other person in God's sight.
Are there some legal things that you have on paper? Something. Because the devil is absolutely in the details, and with this devil, it's going to take at least 10 to 20 years for black teachers to catch up.
So what I would say is that the agreements that were reached include layoff and excess protections for black teachers as well as teachers of color. So that means that the black teachers and teachers of color who are working in the Minneapolis public schools right now have new protection from layoff and accessing.
Respectfully, I'm just quick follow-up, respectfully, I'm talking about classroom teachers. We're looking at tenureship in teachers, teacher percentage and population of the Minneapolis public schools. Again, that was not a specific answer to my question. You said it was based on seniority. So it would be good to hear the teachers rep to answer that question.
During all the excitement, even through all of the strain that we did have to go through, because sometimes I couldn't keep my mind on my lessons for thinking about the people on the outside and what they were thinking of.
So my question is, where's the accountability going to be?
So our accountability is in our contract, and we're here to hold MPS accountable. We're here to hold ourselves accountable, and that goes right into writing, which is a legal agreement. And that is exactly why we're here today, to say that we've reached a tentative agreement, and we have to go right back in here now and work on our return to work so that we can get this on the line and have students back in school.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We are honored and very thankful for the NAACP support for our candidacy, which is powerful and rare. It speaks to the urgency of this moment and the need for change in our broken school system. Our partnership with the NAACP is more than a moment. We are starting a movement with one of the most powerful advocates and champions of civil rights. And I would like to introduce Sister Nafisa Muhammad to speak some words of truth on her experience as an educator before we go.
Hello, my name is Nafisa Muhammad, and I am an English teacher at Patrick Henry High School. I'm here today to read a letter on behalf of the Henry staff, black educators, educators of colors, who were harmed during the strike. And right now we are calling for Edmond and MFT to do a recall vote to force Greta Callahan to resign.
Yes.
Yes.
Say it one more time.
We are asking, okay?
I said we're demanding.
We are demanding, okay? I'm going to read our letter to members in the executive board of MFT 59 to file a formal grievance against Greta Callahan and to state our intent to begin the process of a recall vote as stated in Article 10 of our Constitution and bylaws. Greta committed cruelties towards Henry staff and BIPOC educators during and after the MPS strike. She has condoned other members' cruelties, which has set a precedent that racism and white supremacy can exist and persist in our union. We believe that she breached her fiduciary responsibilities as teacher chapter president. She did this by intentionally misrepresentation, where she deceived members about how she negotiated for educators of color, which in turn caused racialized harm towards multiple members of our community. The following are our grievances: racialized harm and attack towards black educators and educators of color at Henry. This includes slander, minimizing and dismissing our voices and our leadership in this union. She used tactics of intimidation and mischaracterization of Henry educators, attempted to isolate educators of color by sending out communication that maligned their character and dismissed their concern. Blatant disrespect by using bullying tactics from MPS strike captains, which was directed at Henry strike captains. Lied through emails, verbal communication, and in-person communication about the inclusion of contract language protecting teachers of color outside of seniority from access and layoffs. This is corroborated by members on both the ESP and teacher negotiating teams by a recording of Greta Callahan confirming that the priority was being taken off the table on March 17th. She failed to repeatedly to include the demands of educators of color being protected outside of seniority from layoffs and access and negotiations and member-wide email communications. She assumed credit for recentering this priority and did not acknowledge nor elevate the black educators and the educators of color voices that push MFT leadership to make this contract language a priority again. She maintained no accountability for racialized harm. There has been no demonstration of any action towards repairing harm with black educators and educators of color. We demand to be seen. We demand to be heard.
Yes.
Together, we stand united in our call for MFT 59 membership to root out the practices of white supremacy plaguing these systems. White supremacy has and continues to be an anchor in this union at the expense of black educators and educators of color and our beloved students of color. We are stating our intent to file a formal grievance with Education Minnesota and to initiate a recall vote. We ask the MFT 59 Executive Board to take disciplinary action against Greta Callahan. We demand that she takes full responsibility for her racist actions by apologizing to black educators and other educators of color for the harm caused. In addition, we seek to elevate the true narrative of the contract language about the protection of teachers of color from access and layoffs. It is clear that this was off the table until a collective of black and other people of color, educators of color, organized and applied pressure to a union that historically and continues to marginalize our voices. Thank you.
Well, so we're working on a return to work agreement right now, so we'll know about any time that's possibly made up and what goes into that. And once that agreement is finalized, then we can move forward with questions.
Chaz Millionaire, Radio 612 and Maisha Media Group. I had a question about the fact that the African American population, student population, is 77% of those students can't read at grade level. Are the teachers going to be retaught, or how does that work in terms of educating our black children?
So I think the gains that we made in this contract go away to addressing what you're talking about. So one of the things that we've said is fundamental to addressing the challenges we face in the Minneapolis public schools, particularly when it comes to what your question is about, is that we need a more stable workforce. We need educators of color in our schools. We know that that's an important thing.
When you say educators of color, what does that mean? What color?
Even those who was against us, we do not hate those people, because we realize that those people were just misled, and they was trained and brought up that way. That's why that they were never able to understand. And we're not leaving here with hatred in our hearts against anyone.
And guess what? We don't need your media to cover us, because we'll cover ourselves.
Exactly.